What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast and the Great League is just a few hours away from returning. We've managed to get through this awful league rotation, and so I thought now was the right time to showcase the Memories in Motion Great League Classic Edition of the Battle of Spice. And for anyone new to the channel, the Battle of Spice is a competition that I host in the Go Battle League every season, where the aim is to win a battle with the spiciest and most unique team you can possibly put together, and the Classic Edition is a relatively new variation where no XL Pokemon are allowed, to keep investments on the cheap side and hopefully allow for more people to feel like they can compete. Now with that being said, let's just get straight into the question of the day. What is the most recent Pokemon you've built for the Go Battle League? Let me know in the comment section down below, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. Let's go into the first battle, leading Shadow Tornadus into Unova Stunfisk. This is quite a tricky lead matchup for us. We're going to be swapping out into Shadow Venomoth, nearly running a trio of genies. Unfortunately, Shadow Landorus doesn't exist quite yet in the game, so we're running Shadow Venomoth instead. Not really sure I understand that replacement. I'm not sure if they were going for a theme here with this team, but either way, the opponent doesn't have the best answer to a Venomoth save swap, coming in with Alolan Ninetales. We go for back-to-back Poison Fangs, and here, are we going to bother fighting for switch advantage? Yes, we are. We're also going to double shield, and we will outpace to a third Poison Fang. Of course, Poison Fang, they're already double debuffed. It easily gets the KO there. They come back in with the Stunfisk, and they do throw immediately. So, of course, Discharge, gonna get the KO. We're now gonna come back in with the Tornadus, and unfortunately, Air Slash, not a very good fast move. However, we do have access to Grass Knot. So the opponent goes for Discharge, dealing big damage, but they're on Mud Shot as the fast move, and they swap out into a Galarian Rapidash, where we're on Astonish, dealing huge damage with the fast moves. Thunder gets the KO. You can see we're actually still on Frustration, so whilst this is double move, we've only got Thunder to throw. The opponent goes for Discharge, but remember, they're on Mud Shot. We resist the fast move pressure. We're able to reach a last second Grass Knot, and Grass Knot gets the KO, and we're able to take that game. One thing I should also mention is that these battles were done like almost 3 or 4 weeks ago at this point, so if they are in really low elo ranges or before rank 20, do understand that they were done quite a while ago, back when it was fairly early on in the season. But anyways, the opponent is going to go for a payback there before swapping into Clodsire. However, we've got coverage. Earthquake does insane damage to the Clodsire, and unfortunately they do just barely reach a charge move before we farm them down. However, we can shield the Stone Edge, and we come out with a Brave Bird loaded. So Brave Bird pretty much guaranteed to grab a shield back from the opponent, and it does exactly that. We're now going to come in with Regieleki, and they will be able to outpace us to this first charge move, so we're going to look to shield here as they go for a Brick Break, dropping our defense. However, they then swap back into Corviknight, which is fine with us. We can go for Thunder Cage, get the KO there, and we can still outpace the Furret to another Thunder Cage. Thunder Cage at this point should be grabbing the final shield from the opponent, so we swap out straight away into our Shadow Lugia, and Lugia, unless they're running like Hyper Beam, should easily tank a charge move. They've actually only got resistant moves to throw. They go for Trailblaze, doesn't do much damage. Fly gets the KO, and we're able to take that game. Into the next battle, we've got supposedly a sort of vacation holiday themed team here with a Flamingo, a Sandcastle, and a Palm Tree. Anyways, the opponent going to go for a resisted close combat, which does huge damage there. Honestly, that is quite a lot considering that is resisted damage, but we're now going to swap out into Exeggutor, and unfortunately, the opponent able to reach another charge move before we can farm them down. They go for a second close combat before swapping out into a Bastion, which isn't really ideal considering we've got a fighting type and a ground type Pokemon as our other two options, but unfortunately seeing it aligned to the Alolan Exeggutor. But anyways, going to go for back-to-back Seed Bombs, not really dealing much damage here. However, the opponent looks like they're committing to a huge Smackdown farm down, in which case we can go for another Seed Bomb and then snipe with an upper hand from the Flamingo. So of course, this should be grabbing the final shield from the opponent, and it does exactly that. We're going to wait out the switch clock, come in with our Palossand, and the opponent is going to fire off the charge move. We're going to no-shield as they go for a blind Stone Edge there, which is fine with us. They're now going to come in with Credilli. We don't throw it on the best timing, but we can fire off the Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball going to deal big damage, and now we swap into our Exeggutor. We're just going to have to no-shield this, as the opponent is, of course, going to go for a Rock Tomb. We come back in with the Palossand, and can we quite commit to a full farm down here? The opponent going to go for another Rock Tomb bait there, which is unfortunate for us, and we don't commit to a farm down, that might be a mistake. But Scorching Sands gets the KO. They come back in with the Bastion on, but they reach a last-second charge move because we've been debuffed. But they go for a Stone Age. They then swap into Primeape just to be farmed down, and then we sand attack, farm down the Bastion on as well. I don't think we should have won that game, but we're able to pick up the win. And into the next battle, we've got a triple shiny team here, and honestly, I've never seen shiny Delmise before. I didn't even know that was a thing in the game. It's quite a nice shiny, actually. But anyways, we're running counter Sudowoodo, it looks like. The opponent going to be safe swapping into Aegislash, so we come in with the shiny Delmise, and we're going straight for Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball is going to connect. It does big damage, but of course, Aegislash is a very bulky Pokemon. We're actually not going to bother shielding here, which is quite interesting considering I feel like we probably want alignment. We don't want to see our Giratina Origin form aligned to the Umbreon, but we come back in with the Sudowoodo, and actually, it doesn't matter because they've got a Charizard in the back. Now, if we had Rock Throw, this would already be game over, but the opponent has figured out that, of course, we're on counter. That is resisted by the Flying typing, but the opponent just going to settle for an Air Cutter, which is not enough damage to KO. Meteor Beam is going to grab the final shield, and now we swap into our Giratina. We're going to have to no-shield this, of course. Air Cutter not going to do much damage, and of course, they do still have an Umbreon in the back, but we do have access to Dragon Pulse. Dragon Pulse, not exactly the best charge we've ever, however, it's going to deal decent damage in this matchup, so we're going to go straight for the Dragon Pulse. Dragon Pulse should be enough damage to two-shot them from this range, but of course, we will have to double shield. We're going to shield up the next Foul Play, and then potentially look to make a catch onto our Sudowoodo, and we're able to do exactly that. Foul Play gets the KO, the opponent swaps back into Charizard, and we're just going to throw straight away. We don't want to risk being hit by even an Air Cutter, and we still got enough residual energy to outpace the Umbreon, reaching the Dragon Pulse. Dragon Pulse takes out the Umbreon, and we're able to take that game. Into the next battle, leading a shiny Noivern into a Galarian Stunfisk. So not the best matchup for us, however, Heat Wave is now the recommended moveset, and Heat Wave is going to hit for super effective. Rock Slide also going to hit for super effective damage there, but let's see how much damage a Heat Wave will do. Heat Wave going to deal pretty much as much damage as the Rock Slide there. Honestly, that is not bad. However, at this point, I think we're just going to no-shield, sacrifice the Noivern, come in with the Serral Edge, and unfortunately, they did overfarm, so they do reach another Rock Slide before we farm them down. We do get the full farm down though, and they come in with a Medicham, and that is fine with us. We're full sending. Shadow Ball not respected. The opponent may be expecting a Flame Charge bait, and that should now be game over. The opponent comes in with a second Psychic and Fighting type Pokemon in the form of Shadow Gallade, but this Pokemon is very glassy, so we're boosted. We might as well shield just to guarantee the damage from that boosted Incinerate, and that honestly puts them into range where we can just Psycho Cut, farm them down. Of course, Psycho Cut did get a buff this season, dealing more damage. The opponent reaching a Leaf Blade, but it's not going to cut it. We can get the Psycho Cut farm down with the Ponyta, and we're able to take that game. Into the next battle, we're going to see Shadow Salamence into Altaria. Now, this is going to be a fairly neutral matchup here. The opponent is going to make a catch, catching a fly, onto the Azumarill. But now we can come in with Shadow Cacturn, and we can still outpace them to a Trailblaze. Now, without the chip damage from that fly, Trailblaze actually wouldn't quite KO, so that fly honestly helps us out. They're going to come back in with the Altaria. I wouldn't mind shielding here just because we are boosted, but nope, we're going to no-shield that. We're going to come back in with the Salamence, and we are just barely going to reach a Brutal Swing before the opponent farms us all the way down. We actually get the KO there, and the opponent's final Pokemon is going to be Shadow for Alligator. Now, technically, we do resist everything they can possibly throw. However, Shadow Greninja up against Shadow for Alligator is a very glassy matchup, so we're just going to have to shield everything, gonna spam out these Night Slashes, and see how much damage we can do. The opponent does correctly no-shield the first one, just in case we do end up boosting. However, Greninja is just so spammy in this matchup. The opponent, if they don't throw on perfect timing, we can actually outpace them to one extra Night Slash. This Night Slash should be grabbing the final shield from the opponent, and it does exactly that. However, we've already got the Night Slash loaded. Night Slash gets the KO, and we're able to take that game. Into next battle, we've got a triple dark team here with Shadow Houndoom into Swampert in the lead. That is not ideal for us. We're going to be swapping into Samurott, and we're met with a Venusaur, which honestly is not that bad. We've got Fury Cuts hitting for neutral damage, we've got Icy Wind hitting for super effective damage, and we can also debuff their attack stat. We're going to shield here as the opponent is going to full send a Frenzy Plant. Honestly, we can get both shields in this matchup, and then hopefully that will make the matchup for the Shadow Houndoom up against the Swampert slightly more comfortable. We're just going to no shield. We've grabbed that shield advantage. All shields are now down on the opponent's end, but actually we could come in with the Hornscrow. Yeah, we're going to do exactly that, get the full farm down. You see, we're actually not running Brave Bird, which is quite an interesting choice for the Shadow Hornscrow, also known as the Boom Bird, and as you can see, without Brave Bird, unfortunately, we don't quite one-shot the Swampert, but we do set up quite a nice farm down. The opponent's final Pokemon is going to be a Talonflame. We're going to look to overfarm, going to fire for Sky Attack, and Sky Attack should still be enough damage to take out the Talonflame. We pick, farm down the Swampert, and we're able to take that game. Into next battle, we've got a shiny Beedrill running Poison Sting, I believe, as the fast move here, leading into a Nidoqueen. Now, they're going to go straight for a Poison Fang, which is fine with us. Doesn't deal too much damage. We're actually going to bait with an X-Scissor, which I'm really not sure we need to do, but X-Scissor going to be no-shielded, and we can still outpace them here to a Drill Run, and maybe they end up no-shielding this, and they do, so we get the KO. I believe Drill Run probably wouldn't quite one-shot them normally, so maybe that was the right play there. But either way, they come in with a Talonflame. We've got two really good answers here. We come in with Sharpedo, and the opponent's going to have Empoleon. Again, we are going for a very risky bait here. This is going to be double resisted, but we do end up grabbing a shield. Now, it's worth mentioning, Rotom in the wash form is actually a very hard wall to Empoleon, same typing as Lantern, which means we actually resist everything they could possibly throw, but we are on Astonish as the fast move, so at this point, we're probably just going to no-shield once again. We should be able to come out very close to a Thunderbolt up against the Talonflame. And remember, Sharpedo has a crunch already banked, so this game is certainly over. The opponent's committing to the farm down. We've still got a shield. It really doesn't matter. We don't need to use it. We win CMP, crunch, gets the KO, and we're able to take that game. Into next battle, we've got Wugtrio into a Shadow Kanto Ninetales. The opponent can be safe swapping into Primeape, and we respond with a very rare Great League Volcarona. Now, I don't know if this Pokemon has been available to catch outside of just like hatching it from eggs, so if that's the case, then the only way to obtain this Pokemon is actually through trading with a very low level account, I believe. But either way, we are going to get a full farm down, come out with an Overheat loaded. That is resisted damage, but it still does huge damage there. Their final Pokemon is a and we come in with a different form of Rotom, this time going to be the Rotom Moat, and actually, this Pokemon got a huge buff this season, gaining access to Leaf Storm. Previously, it had no Grass-type charge moves at all, but we don't want to debuff ourselves just yet. We go for a Thunderbolt. We're going to have to throw on CMP here, as unfortunately, it wasn't quite enough damage to KO, but they no-shield, and that is certainly game over. The opponent, maybe they would have reached a charge move there, but they didn't end up throwing, and as a result, Mudslap gets the farm down, and we take that game. But into the next battle, we're going to see a Galarian Weezing in the lead, and this is actually really awkward for us because we've got three Pokemon that have double resisted fast move pressure. Now, we do have access to Iron Head. We're going to bait with a Rock Slide though, and Rock Slide going to be no-shielded, so definitely should have just full sent there. That is unfortunate for us because whilst Rock Slide did decent damage, as I mentioned, all of the fast move pressure here is going to be double resisted, which means we are really going to struggle to farm down this Pokemon. The opponent is going to be forced to throw some energy, however, so at this point, we do just let the Aerodactyl go down. We do narrowly lose the one shield scenario there, but we're going to come in with a Sceptile as the opponent is going to fire off a Sludge. Now, at this point, honestly, we've got to just hope that the opponent does just let this move go through, but the opponent is going to double shield the Weezing, recognizing we actually don't really have a great response, so the opponent goes for Sludge, that gets the KO, but then they blind swap into Guzzlord, and they don't even farm to a Sludge Bomb or a Dragon Claw, and as a result, we no-shield the Brutal Swing, we actually get the perfect farm down there, and let's see what the opponent has in the back. The opponent's going to come in with a Quagsire. That is huge for the Breloom. A Seed Bomb, double super effective, gets the one-shot, and we reach a second Seed Bomb, just barely up against the Galarian Weezing, getting the KO, and we're able to take that game. Into next battle, we've got a triple wrestling theme team here, leading with Grap locked into Wigglytuff. Not ideal for us. We're kind of just forced to stay in here as we do have a second fighting type Pokemon, weak to the fairy typing in the back. But we do also have Incineroar. However, we are on Snarl. Snarl is resisted damage, so this is going to be a very tricky matchup for us. However, the opponent's going to swap out into Licky Licky. That's fine with us. We can come in with the Hawlucha. The opponent going to full send a Shadow Ball, but we can now look to overfarm and fire off a Flying Press just before they reach a Body Slam. From this range, Flying Press gets the KO, and we can reach a departing Flying Press into the Wigglytuff coming back in. Flying Press is going to be shielded. Now all shields are down. You can see we actually don't have Blast Burn here, which isn't really ideal for us, but the opponent going to swap into their final Pokemon, a Furret. And actually, this isn't so bad as we can go for Flame Charge, boost up our attack stat. Unfortunately, they do reach a Charge Move here, but this is not going to be a Brick Break. It's just a Swift. We're able to tank it. We farm up to 100 energy. This is the perfect play. As now, Flame Charge gets the KO. We are double boosted, and we don't need Blast Burn right now. As Flame Charge gets the KO, and we're able to take that game. Into next battle, got a triple shadow team here, leading with Nidoking into an Ampharos. They're going to swap out into Jumpluff. We're actually going to no shield here. That is really surprising. And they full send an Energy Ball, which we are actually barely able to hang on to. They also drop out a Fence, but we just barely managed to live and reach an Avalanche. Of course, not running Icy Wind here, so we don't debuff their attack stat. And unfortunately, we've only got, well, we're going to have to full send a Nuke here because we have very minimal Fast Pressure. Again, we're going to no shield as they go for an Acrobatics. I guess saving both shields for Shadow Cacturn is going to be the play. We full send the Sludge Wave there, as of course Earth Power would be triple resisted, but they're going to have a Jellicent in the back. Now, honestly, we are very glassy, so whilst, yes, we do resist everything, we might as well shield here, but now we know we resist the Fast Pressure from all remaining Pokemon. We go for Trailblaze. Trailblaze going to boost up our attack stat, and we can just safely shield here. We should just barely outpace them to the next charge move. We're not going to mess around. We're going straight for Trailblaze. The opponent actually overfarming here, it looks like. It doesn't matter. Trailblaze gets the KO. Sucker Punch is dealing insane damage, farming down the Jellicent, and we're able to take that game. Into next battle, we've got a triple fighting and flying team here with Hawlucha in the lead. The opponent's going to be swapping into a Volt Switch Fortress, which obviously isn't ideal for us. However, we do have a significant energy advantage, so we go for a Flying Press, and we look to throw the next one on CMP. A little bit risky up against a 4-turn fast move. However, the opponent does throw straight away, so at this point we grab a shield advantage. Rock Tomb doesn't quite get the KO there, so we swap into our Zapdos, and this should just be a Sand Tomb. So Sand Tomb, not going to do much damage. Of course, Volt Switch now dealing more damage, but we get the full farm down. They come back in with Credilli. We didn't really want to go for a close combat straight away and debuff ourselves, so we're going to look to shield here. And the opponent's final Pokemon is Macargo. However, unfortunately, by throwing the close combat, we drop out of Fence and Incinerate gets the KO. But it's not too bad, as we do have another fighting and flying type Pokemon, and we actually make a savage catch there, catching the Rock Tomb. We can now come back in with Flamigo, and yes, wing attacks are resisted, but upper hand is a decent charge move. Flamigo, pretty attack weighted, it gets the KO. And so the opponent just concedes the match. Into next battle, we've got Galarian Ponyta in the lead up against Altaria. Now, unlike its evolution, unfortunately, we are not a fairy-type Pokemon. However, we do have access to Play Rough. And Play Rough gonna deal huge damage to the Altaria. And we're now gonna swap and catch onto a Purified Stantler. The opponent goes for Sky Attack, which honestly doesn't deal that much damage here. They now come in with Empoleon. But wait a second, we've got access to Wild Charge. Does the opponent respect it? Nope, it gets the one-shot there. The opponent running the most basic call you could possibly run for the Great League this season, outside of maybe Jellicent and Wigglytuff, but they are getting absolutely obliterated by My Little Pony and Rudolph. So at this point, we're going to come in with the Shadow Vikavolt. We're going to have to shield here. The opponent going to go for a Trailblaze bait. That is quite savage, but that's just not going to be enough for the opponent, as we can go straight for X-Scissor. X-Scissor is going to be shielded, and we've now got the energy for another X-Scissor. And remember, the Galarian Ponyta is very close to a Swift already, so we might go for the combo play here. X-Scissor gonna grab the final shield, and we do swap out. We're able to win CMP with the Ponyta. Swift barely doesn't get the knockout there, but it doesn't really matter. The opponent does not have back-to-back moves. Body Slam gets the KO, but one more Volt Switch gets the full farm down, and we're able to take that game. Into the next battle, we've got a trio of evolutions here, leading with Sylveon up against the Magnezone, which isn't ideal for us, as of course they do resist everything, so we swap into our Umbreon. The opponent gonna go for a Wild Charge there, before swapping into Azumarill, so a very good answer. Unfortunately, not a lot we can do here. We can spam out Last Resorts, but it is basically a last resort. It's not going to do much damage here, but we can go for a second one. Second one, going to be no shielded, and the opponent actually not really going to bother over farming. The opponent going to go for Ice Beam as well, actually, so I guess they can go for an extra few bubbles there to get the farm down, so we don't allow for that to happen at all. Instead, we swap straight away into Sylveon. They swap back into the Shadow Magnezone, but we've now got the energy for a Moonblast, which is resisted damage, but it still does huge damage. We're just going to no shield, save both our shields for the shiny Espeon in the back, and hopefully we can just Confusion farm down something in the back here. So we're going to come in, get that Confusion farm down, and let's see what they want to do. The opponent is thinking about it. They come back in with the Azumarill, and we can outpace to a Psychic Fangs. However, this first one really not going to deal much damage. The opponent gonna no shield. They swap into Gourgeist. However, we're going to start to ramp up our attack stat here. Well, technically not, as we debuff their defense, but they no shield the first charge move. I don't understand that play at all. We tried to make a catch there. Doesn't work out, but the opponent in throwing energy has given up this game as Confusion gets the full farm down. We just barely Confusion farm down Azumarill. They still had 2 shields in play, but had nowhere to use them, and so we're able to take that game. Now into the final battle of this video leading with a Murkrow. Now, Murkrow can technically be an XL Pokemon, however, it can also be below level 40 for the Great League, if it has, obviously, like, decent IVs. Anyways, we're going to shield here, as the opponent is going to full send a Stone Edge. Unfortunately, since we're Purified, we're not quite dealing enough damage to put them into range where one Drill Peck can put them into regular Peck farm down range, so unfortunately, we do have to throw a second charge move. But at this point, we're just going to no-shield. Stone Edge gets the one-shot very comfortably. We're now going to come in with Zapdos, which is quite an interesting choice. The opponent's still going to reach another charge move, just an Arc Tail this time around, but then they swap into Jellicent. So honestly, they must not have a great response here. So we're going to go for a Drill Peck bait. Drill Peck gonna be shielded. We then swap, and hopefully we've just caught a Shadow Ball. It is a Shadow Ball that is double resisted for the Fearow, and now we can outpace to the next charge move. And actually, we might still be able to live a Surf from this range here, as Shadow Ball just really did not do much damage at all. So let's find out. The opponent gonna go for Surf this time around. Surf doesn't come close to getting the KO. They swap back into Quagsire, trying to catch a charge move, but actually just allowing a full farm down. We're certainly going to take that. We can now go for the Drill Peck. Drill Peck gets the KO. We swap out straight away, and we were correct in our assumption. They were weak to the electric typing, and as a result, Thunderbolt gets the one-shot up against the Corviknight, and we're able to take that game. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now, if you want to take your support to the next level, you can become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments of every video. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has become a channel member already. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.